The Mongol Empire was the largest contiguous land empire in human history. From Korea to Hungary, from Siberia to the Persian Gulf, its reach reshaped entire continents. But it began with scattered tribes fighting for survival on the steppe. How did nomads who lived in felt tents, herded animals, and endured bitter winters rise to dominate much of the known world? And why did that empire, built in just a few decades, fragment and collapse within little more than a century? This is the rise and fall of the Mongol Empire. Before the rise of the Mongol Empire, the vast grasslands of Central Asia were home to scattered tribes of nomads. Life on the steppe was harsh and uncertain. Families lived in felt tents, called jirs or yurts, which could be dismantled and moved as herds searched for fresh pasture. Sheep, horses, camels, and cattle provided food, clothing, and transport. Survival depended on constant migration, following the seasons across open plains. These nomadic communities were organized into clans, each led by a khan. Leadership rested on prestige, kinship, and the ability to protect herds. But prestige was fragile. Rival clans frequently fought over pastures, livestock, and honor. Raiding was a constant feature of life, and alliances shifted quickly. A khan's wealth was measured not only by his herds, but also by the number of warriors who would ride at his side. Steppe society had its own balance of power. Men specialized in mounted warfare, mastering the bow and the horse from childhood. Women, however, played a vital role in daily life. They managed migrations, controlled trade, and in some cases influenced politics. The authority of mothers and wives was woven into the fabric of nomadic life, giving women more responsibility than in many contemporary settled societies. To the great civilizations on their borders, these tribes were seen as dangerous but disorganized. Chinese dynasties often bribed steppe leaders to fight one another, keeping them divided. For centuries, this strategy worked, ensuring that no single group grew strong enough to challenge imperial power. The steppe peoples were dismissed as raiders, troublesome but not a real threat. Yet this fragmented world was also a proving ground. Constant struggle produced leaders skilled in survival, strategy, and adaptation. From this environment would emerge one figure, Temüjin, who would transform scattered clans into a disciplined force, laying the foundation for the largest land empire the world has ever seen. Temüjin, who would later be known as Genghis Khan, was born in 1162 into the clan of the Pax Mongols. His father was a minor chief, and his early life should have been one of protection and privilege. But when Temüjin was still a child, his father was poisoned by rival Tatars. Without their leader, the family lost its status and was abandoned by their allies. This left Temüjin, his mother, and his siblings isolated and vulnerable. They survived on wild plants and small game, living in poverty on the steppe. At one point, Temüjin was even captured by a rival clan and forced to wear a wooden collar as a prisoner. He eventually escaped, but these years of hardship shaped his determination and taught him the brutality of life without allies. Despite these setbacks, Temüjin slowly began to rebuild his position. He gathered a group of loyal companions and formed alliances with powerful leaders. One of the most important was with Togrul, the Khan of the Kharat tribe, who acted as a mentor and ally for a time. Temüjin also married Berta, the woman promised to him in childhood, which strengthened his ties to another influential clan. Temüjin's rise was not only through marriage and alliances. He introduced new ideas about leadership. Unlike other steppe khans, who promoted men based on family ties, Temüjin valued merit and loyalty. Capable warriors, regardless of their birth, could rise to positions of command. This system created loyalty from talented men who had been ignored in the old order. By the early 1200s, Temüjin's power had grown steadily. Through victories in battle, clever diplomacy, and his reputation for fairness in distributing spoils, he began to attract more followers. Rival clans, fearing his growing influence, united against him, but one by one they were defeated. In 1206, after years of struggle and warfare, Temüjin's victories culminated in a great assembly on the banks of the Onan River. At this Kurultai, or tribal council, the Mongol tribes declared him their supreme leader. He was given the title Genghis Khan, meaning universal ruler. With this, the foundation of the Mongol Empire was laid, and a fragmented steppe was transformed into a united force ready to expand beyond Mongolia. The unification of the Mongol tribes was not a single event, but a long process of conquest, alliance, and reform. After Temüjin was declared Genghis Khan in 1206, his authority rested on more than just military victories. He reshaped the structure of Mongol society itself. Traditionally, steppe clans placed family prestige above ability. A man could become a commander simply because of his bloodline, even if he lacked talent. Genghis Khan broke this pattern. He divided his people into units called arban, groups of 10 households, which were then organized into larger formations of hundreds and thousands. Leadership positions were granted based on skill and loyalty, not ancestry. This ensured discipline and gave talented men from humble origins a chance to rise. He also reorganized conquered tribes. Instead of allowing them to remain as separate groups, he scattered their members across different Mongol units. This prevented rebellion and encouraged assimilation into a single Mongol identity. Over time, warriors who had once been enemies became part of a unified force. Another important change was in the distribution of spoils. Earlier, Khans often kept the majority of plunder for themselves and their families. Genghis Khan instead distributed goods more evenly among his soldiers, reinforcing loyalty and ensuring that victories benefited everyone. Religion was also handled carefully. The Mongols followed a shamanistic belief system centered on the eternal blue sky, Tengeri. Genghis Khan claimed that his conquests were supported by this divine mandate, yet he also allowed different faiths to coexist. As long as conquered leaders prayed for the well-being of the Khan, their religions were tolerated. By combining military innovation, administrative reform, and religious legitimacy, Genghis Khan forged a new political and social order. What had once been rival clans was now a disciplined confederation of warriors bound to one ruler. With the steppe secured, the Mongols were ready to turn outward, testing their strength against the great civilizations on their borders. With the steppe united under his rule, Genghis Khan looked outward. The wealthiest targets lay to the south, where powerful Chinese dynasties controlled fertile farmland and prosperous cities. At the start of the 13th century, northern China was divided among rival states: the Tangut Kingdom of Western Xia, the Jin Dynasty in the northeast, and the Song Dynasty in the south. The Tanguts were the first to face Mongol attacks. Their defenses relied on walled cities, but the Mongols had a solution. If they could not break walls directly, they surrounded cities and cut them off from supplies. Nomadic herds sustained the Mongols during these sieges, while farmers inside the walls starved. Eventually, Tangut rulers submitted and became vassals, providing tribute to the Mongols. The Jin dynasty, far larger and richer, was the next target. Between 1211 and 1215, Mongol armies swept across northern China. They used mobility, feigned retreats, and relentless archery to overwhelm larger but less flexible Jin forces. In 1215, the Mongols captured Zhongdu, today's Beijing. The city fell after a brutal siege, and its destruction sent shockwaves across the region. While campaigns continued in China, Genghis Khan also turned west. In 1218, he launched an invasion of Central Asia, targeting the Khwarazm Empire. The Khwarazm Shah had angered the Mongols by executing a group of Mongol envoys, breaking one of the Khan's most important laws, the protection of ambassadors. In response, the Mongols marched west with an army estimated at 200,000 men. The campaign against Khwarazm became one of the most devastating in medieval history. Cities like Bukhara and Samarkand were besieged, captured, and destroyed. The Mongols employed both terror and military innovation. Skilled engineers from China built siege machines, while local specialists were forced into Mongol service to support further campaigns. The Shah fled, his empire collapsing under the weight of Mongol attacks. By the time of Genghis Khan's death in 1227, the Mongols controlled a vast territory stretching from northern China through Central Asia and deep into Persia. What had started as scattered tribes had become an empire spanning thousands of kilometers. Yet this was only the beginning. His successors would expand it even further, pushing into Russia, the Middle East, and beyond. In the early 13th century, the Khwarazm Empire controlled much of Central Asia, stretching across Persia and modern-day Iran, Afghanistan, and Uzbekistan. It was a wealthy state, positioned along the Silk Silk Road and appeared to be a strong regional power. Genghis Khan initially sought peaceful relations. He sent envoys to propose a trade agreement, offering direct access to Chinese goods in exchange for partnership. But the Shah of Khwarazm, Ala ad-Din Muhammad II, underestimated the Mongols. Fearing spies, he ordered the Mongol delegation killed. One envoy was executed, the others humiliated. This act directly challenged Genghis Khan's authority and broke the Mongol law that ambassadors must be protected. To the Khan, it was not only an insult, but an act of war. In 1219, the Mongols launched their invasion. They advanced with extraordinary speed, splitting into multiple armies to strike different cities at once. Bukhara was one of the first major targets. After a short siege, the city fell. Genghis Khan is said to have addressed its inhabitants directly, declaring that he was the instrument of divine punishment. From there, the Mongols marched on Samarkand, one of the jewels of the Khwarazm state. Despite its strong fortifications and large army, the city could not withstand the Mongols' tactics. Using siege engines and coordinated assaults, they breached the defenses. The defenders were overwhelmed, and Samarkand was devastated. The Mongols pursued the Shah relentlessly. He abandoned his cities and fled westward, chased by Mongol detachments. His empire disintegrated as one city after another fell. The brutality of the Mongol campaign left a lasting mark. In Nishapur, resistance led to mass slaughter, with tens of thousands reported killed. Other towns were spared only if they surrendered without resistance. By 1221, the Khwarazm Empire was effectively destroyed. The Shah died in exile, while Mongol forces pressed further west into the Caucasus, and even raided as far as the Kievan Rus and Eastern Europe. The war with Khwarazm showed the world the scale of Mongol power. It was not only their speed and skill in battle, but also their use of fear as a weapon. Entire populations, hearing of the destruction of Bukhara or Samarkand, surrendered rather than risk annihilation. The Mongols had demonstrated that no empire, however wealthy or powerful, was beyond their reach. The Mongol Empire was not held together by conquest alone. Genghis Khan understood that war created an empire, but governance was needed to sustain it. To achieve this, he built a system of laws, institutions, and networks that gave the Mongols stability and control over their vast territory. One of the most important foundations was the Yassa, a code of laws attributed to Genghis Khan. While the exact contents are debated, the Yassa set strict rules for discipline, order, and loyalty. It punished theft, betrayal, and disobedience. It also enforced the protection of envoys, outlawed the kidnapping of women, and demanded obedience to the Khan's authority. For the Mongols, these laws replaced tribal customs with a unified legal framework. Religious tolerance was another key feature. The Mongols themselves followed shamanistic traditions centered on Tengri, the eternal blue sky. But Genghis Khan allowed conquered peoples to practice their own faiths, as long as they paid taxes and prayed for the Khan's well-being. Muslims, Buddhists, Christians, and others were permitted to worship freely. This policy reduced resistance and made it easier to rule over diverse populations. The empire also built a communication and trade network known as the Yam system. Relay stations with fresh horses were established across thousands of kilometers, allowing messengers to travel rapidly with orders, intelligence, and news. Merchants and envoys benefited from this system as well, making the empire safer and more reliable for trade. The Silk Road, once plagued by bandits and unstable borders, flourished under Mongol rule. This era became known as the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace. Goods such as silk, spices, porcelain, and paper traveled west, while silver, glassware, and textiles moved east. Ideas and technologies spread as well. Gunpowder, printing techniques, and medical knowledge circulated between civilizations that had rarely been in contact before. Genghis Khan also valued talent wherever it was found. Skilled artisans, engineers, and administrators from conquered regions were relocated across the empire to serve Mongol needs. Chinese siege engineers, Persian bureaucrats, and Central Asian scholars all contributed to the empire's administration. By blending nomadic traditions with the expertise of settled societies, the Mongols created a flexible system that allowed them to manage lands far larger than any steppe tribe had ever dreamed of. This combination of strict law, tolerance, communication, and trade trade turned the Mongol Empire from a conquering horde into a functioning state. Yet after Genghis Khan's death, the question of succession would test whether this system could hold together. Genghis Khan died in 1227 during a campaign against the Tanguts of Western Xia. According to tradition, his burial site was kept secret, hidden somewhere on the Mongolian steppe. His death raised a critical question: who would lead the empire he had built? Succession among the Mongols was not a simple matter of inheritance by the eldest son. Instead, rulers were chosen at a Kurultai, a grand council of Mongol leaders, and the decision had to be unanimous. This often caused delays and disputes. After Genghis Khan's death, his third son, Ögedei, was selected as the new great Khan in 1229. Under Ögedei, expansion continued. Mongol armies crushed the Jin dynasty in northern China, completed campaigns in Persia, and advanced deep into Eastern Europe. By 1241, Mongol forces had reached Poland and Hungary. Victories seemed unstoppable until news arrived that Ögedei had died. Mongol generals, following tradition, withdrew to attend the next Kurultai, sparing Europe from further invasion. This pattern repeated with each succession. After Ögedei came Guyuk and later Möngke, each selected only after long delays and intense political struggles. These disputes weakened unity and allowed rival factions within the royal family to challenge one another. By the 1260s, conflict erupted between Genghis Khan's grandsons, especially Kublai and his brother Arikboke. Civil war broke out, and when it ended, the Mongol realm was divided into four major khanates: the Yuan dynasty in China, founded by Kublai Khan, the Ilkhanate in Persia and the Middle East,